The silence in conference room B felt suffocating as Ellis closed his presentation with a smirk. My team sat frozen, 12 faces cycling from disbelief to confusion, and finally to a quiet, stunned devastation that settled over the table like dust after an explosion. The air itself felt heavier, as if even breathing required permission. "Let me make sure I understand," I said, keeping my voice unnaturally steady, carefully measured so it wouldn't betray what was rising in my chest. My team delivered 300% above target this quarter. We rebuilt the distribution system from the ground up. We saved this company millions, and our reward is a doubled workload with zero additional compensation? Ellis adjusted his Italian tie, his wedding ring flashing briefly under the fluorescent lights as if to underline his comfort. "That's correct, Briar. Think of it as a compliment. Your team clearly has more capacity than we've been utilizing." Faye, our data expert, the one who had skipped her sister's wedding just to finish our largest deployment, lifted her hand like we were back in a classroom. "I'm already working 60-hour weeks. How exactly am I supposed to double that?" "Time management," Ellis replied without even looking in her direction. "Perhaps fewer coffee breaks." Weston pressed both palms flat against the table. He hadn't taken a vacation in 3 years. "This doesn't track. Standard protocol is bonuses for exceeding targets. We didn't just exceed them, we fundamentally changed how this division operates." Ellis exhaled sharply, the way people do when they believe they're explaining something painfully obvious. "Consider it a necessary recalibration for division harmony. Your performance has created friction with other teams." Tensions. Liv, our newest hire, looked genuinely lost, like she was missing a key piece of the puzzle. "You're making other teams look bad," Ellis said bluntly. "Harmony matters more than standout performance." That was it. No discussion, no room for appeal. I watched my people absorb the blow. Knox, who had worked straight through the week of his father's funeral, Daphne, who had postponed surgery just to deliver her project on time. 12 faces carrying the same brutal realization. Excellence here wasn't rewarded, it was penalized. While they looked shattered, something inside me went cold and solid, a kind of icy clarity I'd never known before. "Everyone on my team," I said, "standing. My office. Now." Ellis raised an eyebrow. "We're not finished here, Briar." "We absolutely are." I gathered my things slowly, deliberately. "You've made your position perfectly clear. I need to speak with my team." They followed me in silence, shoulders slumped, eyes fixed on the carpet like mourners in a procession. Once all 12 of them were crammed into my small office, I pulled the blinds shut and locked the door. "Is this where you tell us to hang in there?" Ash asked, her voice hollow. "Because I don't think I have anything left." "No," I said, leaning back against my desk. "This is where I tell you something that doesn't leave this room." 12 exhausted pairs of eyes locked onto mine. 3 months ago, when we first started dramatically outperforming targets, I received a private message from someone I'd never met, Tegan Frost. The room stirred immediately. Tegan Frost was almost mythological, the semi-retired board chair who had built the company from nothing 3 decades ago. She'd noticed irregularities in our division's metrics and wanted to understand why. We met for coffee. She asked me a question I couldn't answer. Why does every high-performing team in this company eventually get dismantled or constrained? Before I continue, thank you for listening. And if you're enjoying this corporate revenge story, hit like and subscribe for more. Your engagement helps me decide what stories to share next. Now back to what unfolded in my office that day. My name is Briar Hawthorne, and until that moment, I had been the textbook company loyalist. For 8 years, I'd climbed from entry-level analyst to team lead by avoiding politics and focusing on results. I built the most effective team this division had ever seen. "So we designed a test," I continued, watching despair shift into curiosity. "We were lab rats?" Remy asked, sitting up straighter. "Strategic participants," I corrected. Tegan suspected innovation was quietly suffocated somewhere in middle management, but she needed evidence. "So this quarter was staged?" Kay asked tightly. "Your work was absolutely real," I said, "but leadership's reaction was documented. Would they reward excellence or punish it?" Today gave us our answer. I opened my bottom drawer and pulled out a folder I'd received that morning. This isn't a pep talk, it's an exit plan. You're leaving? Finn asked, his voice trembling. I'm evolving, I said, and I'm inviting you to evolve with me. Inside the folder wasn't severance paperwork, it was a fully funded spin-off venture backed by Tegan herself, offering roles to the entire team at 40% higher pay, equity included. The mission was simple: build what this company kept strangling. The mood shifted, cautious hope replacing despair. What stops the same thing from happening there? Sage asked. Ownership structure, I replied, equity for all of us, and explicit protections against punishing high performance. Why not just fix things here? Vale asked quietly. Corporate culture is harder to repair than people think. Tegan realized it would be faster to extract talent than to salvage what's broken. Take the weekend, I said. Read everything. Ask questions. Whatever you decide, keep this confidential. By Monday morning, 9 of the 12 were in. 3 couldn't risk the leap. I respected that. I submitted 9 resignation letters at once. Ellis called an emergency meeting within the hour. Name your price, he said, flushed. We'll match it. It's not about money, I told him. It's about not punishing excellence. When he learned where we were going, desperation turned to fury. A subsidiary? That's sabotage. It's the consequence of your leadership choices, I replied. He threatened board intervention. I smiled. Approval had already been unanimous. The next 7 days were openly hostile. Access revoked, files vanished, security escorts. On the final day, Ellis pulled me aside. He warned me about influence, about relationships, about consequences. I refused to play a broken game. As I packed my office, Weston appeared in the doorway. Ellis has been calling clients, he said quietly, suggesting we were pushed out for performance issues. My hand froze midair. Team meeting at Parlor Cafe in 30 minutes, I said. The cafe became our first war room. 9 anxious faces leaned in as I spoke without a preamble. He's poisoning the well. Can he do that? Liv asked. Legally, it's risky, Knox replied. Subtle, he added, raised eyebrows, pointed questions about why we all left abruptly. So what do we do? Fee asked. We need those client relationships. I'd been asking myself since talking with Weston. Our original plan had been a clean break, finish our notice professionally, spend 2 weeks setting up the new venture, then approach clients. Now we had to accelerate everything. We adapt, I said, finally. Ellis believes business runs on relationships, not performance. Let's prove him half right. What does that mean? Ash asked, puzzled. It means we call every client tonight, not to poach, which would breach contracts, but to say goodbye, thank them for the partnership, and wish them well. And when they ask why we're leaving, Caress promised, we tell the truth, I said simply. Not to hurt Ellis, but because it's the truth. We delivered record results and were told excellence isn't valued. We found a place where it is. That's risky, Sage said, ever cautious. Less risky than letting Ellis control the story, I countered. We know these clients. They value results. They've seen what we've delivered. Silence hung until Daphne squared her shoulders. I'm in. My clients trust me. They should hear this from me first. One by one, the others nodded. We divided the client list and scattered to make personal calls from coffee shops, park benches, and car seats across the city. I took the 3 largest accounts, including Meridia Systems. Their director, Adira, answered on the second ring. Briar, everything okay? You never call after hours. I inhaled deeply. I'm calling with personal news. Today was my last day at the company. Silence. What happened? You were just promoted last year. I stuck to facts without embellishment. When I finished, Adira was quiet so long I thought we'd lost the connection. That explains the odd call from Ellis this afternoon, she finally said. He mentioned team restructuring for optimal client service. I assumed someone was promoted. What else? That your team was being reassigned to better serve clients? That a new, more experienced team leader would take over? Adira paused. He strongly implied you couldn't handle high-value accounts. Despite expecting it, hearing it confirmed made my throat tighten. 8 years of exemplary service reduced to a lie. Where are you going next? She asked. I hesitated. I can't solicit business, but I can tell you I'm joining a new venture with most of my team. Interesting, she said. Very interesting. Ellis is coming by tomorrow to introduce my new team contact. Perhaps you and I should have breakfast before that meeting. By midnight, similar conversations had unfolded across the city. 7 clients requested meetings with us as friends before committing to new teams. It wasn't poaching if they sought us out. The next morning, heading to meet Adira, my phone rang from an unfamiliar number. "Is this Briar Hawthorne?" a crisp voice asked. "Yes, who's calling?" "Julian Mercer, Board of Directors. We need to meet immediately." My stomach dropped. "May I ask what this is regarding?" "Ellis has filed a formal complaint accusing you and your team of client theft, corporate espionage, and violating non-compete agreements. These are serious allegations, Ms. Hawthorne." "They're also completely false," I said, fighting to keep my voice steady. "That remains to be determined. The board is convening an emergency session at 11 a.m. Your presence is required." As I ended the call, a text from Tegan appeared. "Don't panic. Remember the plan." But there was a problem. We didn't have a plan for this. The board meeting felt like walking into an ambush. 12 stern faces lined the massive table. Ellis seated at one end with a smug smirk. Julian Mercer, who had called me earlier, gestured to an empty chair at the opposite end. "Miss Hawthorne, thank you for joining us on short notice." I nodded, keeping my expression neutral despite my racing heart. "Of course." Scanning the room, I noticed Tegan was absent, my one ally nowhere in sight. "We've received disturbing allegations," Julian continued, sliding a folder across the table. "Mr. Brooks claims you and your team have violated multiple clauses of your employment contracts." I opened the folder. Inside were printouts of call logs, meeting schedules, and client emails, all highlighted and annotated to cast the worst possible light. "Ellis claims you orchestrated a mass client exodus," Julian explained, "that you used confidential information to solicit business for your new venture." I closed the folder carefully. "That's categorically false." "You deny contacting clients after hours yesterday," Ellis interjected. "I don't deny calling clients to inform them of my departure. That's professional courtesy, not solicitation." "And these breakfast meetings scheduled with 7 major clients?" Ellis pushed a printed calendar across the table. "Just coincidence?" "Those meetings were requested by the clients after learning of my departure." Ellis laughed. "And you expect the board to believe they spontaneously requested these meetings without any prompting?" "Yes," I said simply, "because it's the truth." Julian cleared his throat. "Regardless of who initiated, these meetings create the appearance of impropriety." "With respect," I countered, "informing clients of a departure and accepting their invitations doesn't violate any contract terms. Our non-compete prevents us from actively soliciting business for 12 months. It doesn't prevent clients from seeking us out." Ellis's smile faltered slightly. "She's twisting the language to justify theft of company resources." "What resources have I stolen?" I asked directly. "Client relationships, team members," Ellis pressed. "Client relationships don't belong to the company," I replied evenly. "They're built on trust between people, and individuals aren't resources to be owned." A woman at the far end of the table, Nora, the finance director, leaned forward. "Miss Hawthorne, while your point about relationship ownership has merit, the timing appears suspicious. 9 resignations submitted simultaneously, followed by immediate client outreach?" I nodded, acknowledging her concern. "I understand how it looks, but consider our perspective. After delivering unprecedented results, we were told our reward was punishment, doubled workloads with no compensation. When we resigned, Ellis began contacting clients, mischaracterizing our departures. We had no choice but to correct the record." "So you admit coordinating this response?" Ellis pounced. "I admit leading my team through a difficult transition you made unnecessarily hostile." The boardroom door opened, and Tegan Frost entered, leaning slightly on a cane. "Sorry I'm late. Tiffic was terrible," her voice stronger than her frail appearance suggested. "Evidently not," she replied dryly, taking a seat midway down the table. "But when I heard about this emergency session regarding the team I've been personally monitoring, I thought my perspective might be relevant." Ellis's expression tightened. "With all due respect, Tegan, you've been semi-retired for years." "I've been semi-retired, not semi-conscious," Tegan retorted, earning a few suppressed smiles from board members. "And I've been watching this situation unfold for months." She turned to the board. What Ellis isn't telling you is that I personally recruited Breyer and her team for a special project after seeing how innovation was systematically suppressed in our core business. Ellis's face reddened. That's completely, let me finish. Tegan cut him off sharply. The board approved the subsidiary 3 months ago. It's in the minutes you apparently didn't read before convening this inquisition. Several board members exchanged uneasy glances. The legal department cleared the transition plan, including the client communication protocol that Breyer followed precisely. I wasn't informed of any subsidiary, Ellis insisted. No, you weren't, Tegan agreed, because your management style was what we were testing. The room went silent as the implications sank in. Ellis had unknowingly been the subject of evaluation, not the evaluator. Julian shifted uncomfortably. This is unusual, Miss Frost. Innovation often is, she replied coolly. For a moment, I allowed myself to relax. Tegan had arrived like a deus ex machina to resolve the situation, but Ellis wasn't finished. He slid another document across the table. Even if the subsidiary was approved, these performance metrics tell the real story. Breyer's team has consistently misrepresented their achievements. The supposed 300% improvement was statistical manipulation. I felt my blood run cold. He was attacking our results, our legitimacy. That's absurd, I protested. Our numbers were independently verified. By whom? Ellis challenged. Your own team members? Hardly independent. I opened my mouth to argue, but Julian raised his hand. Let's examine the evidence. If there were misrepresentations, that would change matters, significantly. Ellis smugly pushed forward spreadsheets and charts I'd never seen before, showing our projects underperforming, timelines missed, budgets exceeded. None of it matched reality, but it looked convincing. These are fabricated, I said, disbelief lacing my voice. They're from our central database, Ellis countered, entered by your team leads. That's when it clicked. The missing access permissions during our final week, the mysterious IT maintenance that locked us out of performance dashboards. Ellis hadn't just been delaying our transition, he'd been rewriting history. Tegan studied the documents with narrowed eyes. These don't match the reports I've seen. With respect, Ellis said smoothly, you've been seeing curated information. These are the raw numbers. The board members glanced uncertainly between us. I could feel the tide turning back in Ellis's favor. Without access to the originals, how could I prove these were falsified? Just as despair threatened to overwhelm me, my phone vibrated. A text from FA. Check your email now. I glanced at my screen to see dozens of messages, all with attachments. May I respond to these allegations with evidence? I asked Julian, who nodded. I took a deep breath. When our team noticed unusual system activity last week, we became concerned about data integrity, so each member independently archived all project documentation, client correspondence, and performance metrics. Not company property, just records of our own work. Ellis's confidence wavered visibly. That's not possible. Actually, it's standard backup protocol, I said, opening my laptop. The company handbook encourages maintaining personal work records. I projected onto the boardroom screen a side-by-side comparison, Ellis's doctored reports versus our archived originals, complete with authentication timestamps and system logs. These records show the actual performance metrics and, more importantly, exactly when and how the official records were altered last week. The room seemed to chill as board members leaned forward, realizing the manipulation they'd almost been drawn into. Julian turned to Ellis, voice dangerously quiet. You falsified company records to discredit a departing team. Ellis's composure cracked. They were leaving anyway, taking clients, destroying team cohesion. Because you punished them for excellence, Tegan interrupted, the very behavior we built this company to reward. It wasn't punishment, Ellis insisted desperately. It was strategic resource allocation. Doubling workloads without compensation? Nora asked incredulously. Ellis scanned the table, finding no allies. You don't understand the pressures middle management faces, the conflicting demands, the impossible metrics.
"I think we understand perfectly now," Julian said coldly. "This meeting is adjourned. Ellis, stay. Everyone else may leave." As I gathered my things, Tegan caught my eye and nodded slightly. Outside, my team waited anxiously. "In the lobby. What happened?" Knox asked immediately. I smiled, the tension of months finally releasing. "Ellis just learned why you don't mess with data specialists." "Did Faze's package help?" Remy asked. "Perfect timing," I confirmed. "How did you know?" Faye shrugged. "Ellis was too smug yesterday. We figured he had something planned." Daphne checked her watch. "I hate to break up this moment, but I have a client breakfast in 20 minutes. "Technically not our clients anymore," Cora reminded me. "Not yet," I agreed, "but soon." Over the next 3 months, our new venture took shape in ways I could never have imagined. Freed from the constraints of Ellis's leadership, innovation thrived. Our first major project launched 6 weeks ahead of schedule, and those breakfast meetings, 7 became 12, then 20, not because we poached clients, but because word spread about what we were building. 6 months later, I received an unexpected invitation to the annual Company Leadership Summit, not as a participant, but as a keynote speaker. The topic? Cultivating excellence without fear. As I prepared my presentation, an email arrived from Julian Mercer. "Thought you'd want to know," it began. After a comprehensive leadership review, several changes had been implemented. Ellis was no longer with the company. His position had been eliminated in the restructuring. Attached was the new organizational chart. The entire middle management layer had been reimagined. Teams were now structured around innovation hubs rather than hierarchical reporting lines. The email continued, "The board has recognized the systematic issues you helped expose. We're implementing new incentive structures that reward exceeding targets rather than punishing standout performance." At our 1-year celebration, Tegan raised a glass to our team, now partners rather than subordinates. "To recognizing the difference between being punished for excellence and being rewarded for it," Ash added. "And to Breyer, who made one call that changed everything." I smiled, thinking of that first coffee with Tegan. Actually, she called me. I just answered. Sometimes that's all it takes. Answering when opportunity calls, even if it means leaving behind everything you thought was secure, because excellence should never be punished. And sometimes the best revenge isn't destroying what's broken, but building something better. If you enjoyed this story of corporate revenge and justice, please hit that like button and subscribe for more tales of workplace triumph. Share your thoughts in the comments. Have you ever been punished for excellence? How did you respond? Your experiences might inspire the next story I tell. Until next time, remember your worth isn't determined by those who can't recognize it.